Hi, in this video I'm going to share 9 tips for exam writing. So these tips are quite general. I'm really talking about IELTS and Cambridge exams, but a lot of this would apply to other writing exams. So the biggest problem I see with exam candidates in writing, the biggest problem is structuring their essays. So different languages might structure things in different ways, and if you don't have a good structure in your writing, you can't really express your ideas very well. It's not going to be clear and it's not going to be easy to read. So the number one thing you need to work on is the overall structure. That is super important. Another problem I see, and again this is surprisingly common, is that people just don't actually read the question. People don't read and they don't give themselves time to process the question. So to give you an example, I had an IELTS student once and she had some lessons and then she went to do her exam, and then she sent me a message saying, oh, well, the exam question was problem solutions, but I did advantages and disadvantages. Does that matter? I'm like, yes, that matters. So you must read the question carefully and you must be able to understand before you start to write. And the third problem that I see is to do with word choice and word use. Sometimes people think that they have to use very, very complicated language to get a high score. Actually, you just need to use appropriate words accurately. So these are appropriate to your level. So obviously at CPE, we expect more than at FCE, but it's really a case of you using the right words in the right way. All right, so let's get going with these 9 tips. Tip number 1 is to make your essay as easy to read as possible. So you need to think about the person who is going to read your essay, and this person is going to be an examiner. And yes, they get paid, but they don't get paid very much. They're not making a fortune from reading hundreds of essays. And it could be that your essay is the last one of the day, and they're tired, and they're bored, and they're hungry, and they want to go home. And then if you give them an essay which is a mess and very hard for them to see where, the paragraphs are, for example, you're not helping them to like your writing. So a lot of what I teach with exam writing is just make it easy for the examiner. Make it easy to see the paraphrase in IELTS. Make it easy for them to find your evaluation in CPE. Just signpost everything clearly so that they can go, oh yeah, tick, 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 done. It's so much better if you can do that. If you are, and it's unlikely, but if you are doing a handwritten essay, make sure that they will be able to read your writing. They may not have the time or the patience to sit down and think, now what's that word? What did they mean? So make sure that whatever writing you do is really easy to read. Tip number 2, again, we're going to talk about structure. All of these exams, FCE, CAE, CPE, and IELTS, are very, very formulaic in what writing you will do. So the Cambridge exams, if you're doing CAE, the exam writing questions will always be the same. The essay question will be the same every time. For IELTS, it's a bit more complicated because you've got more question types. But the point is that this is not free writing. You're not going to go in and get a completely new question type. And because of this, it means that you can have a formula to write by. So when I am teaching exam writing, I always teach specific structures to use, because those structures can be memorized and used again and again and again. And this means that you will have very much more consistent writing. Okay, so there are lots of different essay structures out there. I suggest that you do some research into different kinds of essay structure and choose one that is going to help you answer the exam questions for your exam and memorize that structure until you can produce it consistently on demand. So memorize a structure. The third tip is to practice understanding the question. It's really important. It's especially important in IELTS because you've got task 1, which could be a line graph, a bar graph, a pie chart, maps, a combination of that. And then you've got your task 2, which could be advantages, disadvantages, problem solutions, a 2-part question. So for IELTS, you need to know how you are going to answer all of those different types of questions. And you must be very good at reading the questions and understanding what IELTS want you to do. It's not always easy to do this. So it's something you should practice, preferably with a teacher, but you definitely need to get very, very good at understanding what you are being asked to do. For the Cambridge exams, it's less complicated than in IELTS, but you still need to understand the topic you are being asked to write about and what Cambridge want you to do with it. So, for example, in CAE you get 3 points, you need to choose 2. You need to make sure that you have chosen 2, not 3, and not 1. So I know this sounds very obvious, but it's surprising how many people don't do this. So practice reading and understanding the question. The fourth tip, now this is not something that I feel is very widely done, and I learnt this idea from IELTS Simon. If you're working for IELTS, I highly recommend IELTS Simon. You can Google his website, it's great. But this tip is to write something he calls a skeleton essay. So a skeleton essay is a complete introduction, the complete conclusion, and the topic sentence for each main body paragraph. Why would you do that? What's the point of that? Well, the point of that is that it's very, very easy for you and your teacher to see, have you included all the information? If this was a complete essay, would the structure make sense? Your introduction, conclusion, and topic sentences should be enough to give a very kind of general answer to the question. And if you can't do this with your skeleton, you're not likely to be able to do it with a full essay. Good news is that skeletons are much quicker to write than a full essay, and they are definitely worth practicing. All right, tip number 5, and this is about vocabulary and grammar. So you need to build up a kind of database of useful language and useful phrases. So I am in some IELTS writing groups online, and I go in and have a look at people's IELTS essays sometimes. Lots of them are fantastic, but some of them are like reading a dictionary. Some of them, I'm just like, oh, I don't know that word. I've never used that word, and yet this person has put it in their essay, and it doesn't really work. It doesn't make sense. So yes, you need to be using appropriate vocabulary, but it's more important for you to use topic vocabulary linking words and phrases and patterns and chunks, and to use that accurately, than it is for you to go and memorize a whole load of really difficult words but not be able to put them in a sentence. So this is about vocabulary building, vocabulary learning, using model essays and taking out useful language, which is something most people find quite challenging. So again, do it with a teacher. But over time, you want to prepare and build a whole kind of personal dictionary of useful words and phrases. And don't forget that writing itself, we use the same phrases again and again and again. You don't need to be constantly reinventing things. Just get good at using the words that you need in your writing. All right, the next tip number 6. Now, again, like I say, I'm in these IELTS writing groups, and I sometimes see conversations there with, talking about whether people need to have a teacher. And I always feel a little bit, I find it surprising that people would even wonder if they need a teacher. IELTS is very expensive. IELTS, it's about £200. It varies from country to country, but it's not cheap. And yet people seem to think that they can prepare for it on their own and that'll be fine. And then what happens is it's not fine and they don't get what they need. So then they do it again without a teacher. And I just don't understand this logic. This to me, it's a false economy. If you are working for IELTS, FCE, CAE or CPE, you need help. You need support. You need someone on your side to get you in the right place for you. I understand that a very experienced, qualified native speaker teacher is not cheap, but you need to see that as an investment, not a waste of money. It is not a waste of money to have someone reputable on your side. It can only help you to meet the requirements and to get the score that you deserve. So absolutely find a good teacher. Number 7, you should do some timed writing practice. And this means that you get a clock or a stopwatch and you do a complete exam to time. You don't give yourself an extra few minutes to get the conclusion done. That's not going to help. Timed writing is very different to practicing writing with your teacher. And you need to get used to the constraints of time, because in IELTS and Cambridge, you don't have much time. And you need to be used to that long before the exam. So timed writing practice. Tip number 8 is to make a plan before you start to write. No one wants to do this. My students are like, oh no, I don't have time to make a plan. I've just got to start writing because I've only got 40 minutes and no. If you've got a structure, if you have got a structure that you know and you are comfortable with, planning your essay around that structure will take you less than 10 minutes. When I teach people to do this, I teach them to make a plan literally for each sentence in their structure. And initially, people are quite resistant to this. Oh no, I haven't got time, no, I can't. But actually what happens is that because they've got a really good plan, they can write their essay really fast and really well because they know what they are going to say and they know where they are going to say it, and it all fits together. So practice making plans. And the final tip number 9, and this is super important too, the word count. It's important. It's there for a reason, okay? In IELTS, if you are under your word count, you are going to lose marks. If you are over your word count, you won't lose marks, but you really need to be careful with time. It's all about time. And I had a friend who she's a native speaker and she's actually an English teacher. And for various reasons, she took the IELTS exam. Now, she was able to write, I think, about 350 words in task 2, but she didn't actually get a very good score. And she said afterwards, I didn't have a plan and I was just writing and it didn't work. So longer is not better. For IELTS, I would suggest about 270 to 280 for task 2, about 170 for task 1. For the Cambridge exams, again, you don't want to be under your word count. It's not going to give you enough words to impress the examiner. You can be a little bit over, but again, you're running the risk of not having enough time. So those word counts, they are there to help you practice sticking to them because you need them in your exam. So that's a lot of information. I have got a blog post about this topic. It's on my website. The link is below. If you have any questions about exam writing, please leave me a comment. Always happy to give you a hand. My name is Sarah and I'm an English teacher and language anxiety coach, and I help people overcome their fear of speaking and using English. Thank you for watching.